I just wanted to share a study which I've done into the Sabbath. Seems a very contentious issue in today's modern church, so yeah, here goes. So what does our Creator have to say about his Sabbaths? Well, Genesis 1:14, and Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, and for days and years." Which all seems pretty straightforward, but when you actually go into Strong's Concordance and see what signs and seasons are, well, that changes everything. So signs in Strong's is a signal, a flag, a beacon, a monument, evidence, a mark, a sign. And the seasons is an appointment, a fixed time, an assembly, a signal, an appointed assembly, appointed feasts. And it also comes from the root word, which means to fix upon, to meet, to summon, to engage, to assemble, gather, a set time. But should we even be keeping the Sabbath? Well, let's see what the Old Testament has to say about it. Exodus 28, remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. It's actually one of the 10 Commandments. Yahuwah blessed and hallowed the Sabbath. Ye shall guard the Sabbath, for it is holy unto you. Anyone that defiles it will be surely put to death. And again, anyone that works on the Sabbath will be put to death. So he took it pretty seriously. It's probably one of the weightier matters of the law. In Exodus again, it says it's a perpetual covenant. Leviticus is a statute forever. Not until the cross, forever. Leviticus, again, guard my Sabbath and reverence my sanctuary. It's a holy convocation. Every Sabbath will be kept as an everlasting covenant. In Deuteronomy, keep it holy, as Yahuwah has commanded you. Prophet Isaiah says, blessed is a man who does this, and the Son of Man who lays hold on it, who keeps from defiling the Sabbath and keeps his hand from doing any evil. And also to the sons of the stranger, the Gentile, who join themselves to Yahuwah as engrafted in, they're expected to keep the Sabbath as well, and it's a covenant to him. And Ezekiel, I give them my Sabbaths to be a sign, which is a mark or evidence between me and them, that I might know that I am Yahuwah, to sanctify them. Wow, it could actually be a seal or a sign that we are in covenant with him. And Ezekiel 84:8, we are to remember the Torah and the covenant of your fathers, and forget not the feasts and the Sabbaths. And in the book of Jubilees, we are warned, many will perish and be taken captive, because they have forsaken my ordinances and my commandments and the feasts of the covenant and my Sabbaths. Or anyone who observes and guards my Sabbaths and all from all his work will be holy and blessed throughout all his days. And we are also told that we will disturb the order and make an abominable day a day of testimony, and an unclean day a feast day, and will confound all the days, holy and unclean, and the unclean with the holy, and they will go wrong as to the months and the Sabbaths, the feast days and the Jubilees. So I really hope you can see that it is really important that we worship our Father on his appointed times. Not what we think, but his appointed times. But then again, that's the Old Testament. That's just for the Jews. So let's see what the New Testament has to say. So in the book of Matthew, most people believe that Yeshua actually broke the Sabbath, because him and the disciples picked corn and also healed on the Sabbath, which the Pharisees saw as being work, hence breaking the law. But you need to understand that the law that the Pharisees accused him of breaking was the Talmud. That was the law of Judaism, a man-made religion. Traditions of men. He most definitely did not break the Torah. And in Matthew 24, which is end time stuff, he's actually assuming we're still keeping the Sabbath then. And Matthew 23, these are the words of our Messiah who we are meant to obey, says, "To the teachers of the law who sit in Moses' seat, do everything they tell you," which includes the Sabbath. The writer of Hebrews, there remains a Sabbath for the children of God. So right up until the cross, even Mary here was keeping Sabbath and preparation day. But I guess all that changed at the cross, right? Well, let's test that. Let's go 2,000 years back in time and see what the founding fathers of the church were doing. So in Acts 2, the disciples met on Shavuot, which most people call Pentecost now and believe is when the church actually started. In Acts 13, Paul went to the synagogue on the Sabbath and sat down after reading the Torah and the prophets. So in Acts 15:21, and Moses, the Torah, of old time was taught in every city, being read in a synagogue every Sabbath. Acts 16, and on the Sabbath he went out of the city to pray. Acts 17, Paul, as his manner was, went into the synagogues on the Sabbath to reason with them out of the scriptures. And by the way, the New Testament wasn't even written then. Acts 18, again, they went into the synagogues every Sabbath. In Acts 20, we see Paul sailed away from Philippi after the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the high Sabbath. Now why is he still keeping the holy days? In Acts 20, Paul determined to sail from Ephesus because he hastened to be in Jerusalem for Shavuot, another high Sabbath, and another feast day. So this is Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles. Are we not to emulate him? Has he emulated our Messiah? But no, Jesus is our rest. I rest in Jesus. Well, let's test that. So in Hebrews 4:9 to 11, King James Version, there remains therefore a rest to the people of God. For he that has entered into his rest, he has also ceased from his own works, as God did from his. Let us therefore enter into that rest, that any man should fall after the same example of unbelief. Now let's read that same verse again in context. There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters into God's rest also rests from their works, just as God rested from his. Let us, therefore, make every effort to enter into that rest. Now listen, so that no one will perish by following the example of disobedience. Forget what you've been taught in these man-made institutions. Read the Bible for yourself. Study to show yourself approved. Turn back to God. Keep his Sabbaths, not Sunday. Keep his holy days, not man-made holidays. As it is written, if you love me, you will keep my commandments.